The most talked about player in this year's NBA draft wasn't the expected #1 pick, Cooper Flagg. It was the Chinese prospect nicknamed the Jokic of China, Yang Hansen, who was surprisingly picked 16th overall by the Portland Trail Blazers. Since many thought this was a marketing move, Yang Hansen had to prove his worth starting from the Summer League, and his performance there truly lived up to the Chinese Jokic nickname. Of course, he's still young and has rough edges to smooth out, but he looked pretty competitive against players his age. However, his real challenge is proving his value in the regular season, and today's first preseason game was basically his true debut. To make it tougher, the opponent was Golden State, full of seasoned veterans. So the matchup between Portland and Golden State drew huge attention. Moses Moody and Al Horford started for Golden State. As expected, Yang Hansen started the game from the bench, while coach Steve Kerr started Horford this time. Unlike last game, Horford came out aggressively, taking quite a few shot attempts early. But while Horford couldn't get his shots to fall, Portland opened the preseason with Donovan Clingan's tip-in and a three-pointer from Shaedon Sharpe to take the lead.
Three-point shooting percentage last season.
Steph saying, all right, I'll drop in the three, and that is the new.
But the one who broke the home team's scoring drought was, of course, Curry. He drew a foul under the new high-five rule and turned it into a 4-point play, then turned the defense's focus on him into a Draymond Green three-pointer.
Go to the bench, and Jan Hansen steps in along with Deni Avdija.
Yang Hansen checked in pretty early in the game, but unfortunately his first preseason stat was a loose ball foul, and on the next possession he gave up a three to Draymond Green. Just leave Draymond open, they said. Meanwhile, nearly 40-year-old Horford even pushed a fast break, which was wild to see. Still, Hansen set a solid screen to free Sharpe for a jumper, and showed flashes of his defense that made him a DPOY back in China. At this point, the visiting Blazers were still in control.
I'll tell you what happened during that last time out. The Warriors starters didn't want to get subbed out. No, they didn't get off to a great beginning.
Then Horford forced a turnover out of Hansen with some smart defense. And while Hansen sat after showing some defensive promise, Golden State sped things up and ran some clean transition plays. That quick one-touch pass from Steph Curry was right on target. Later, Curry picked up his second foul on a shooting play.
But he's not open. But catching and throwing in one motion, it's a layup. Curry for three.
But he didn't seem to care and drained another three right after. Golden State then brought in their bench unit, including Jonathan Kuminga, who again showed his unselfish passing mindset. And Quinten Post scored after shaking off Hansen's defense. The two teams seemed ready to stay neck and neck. But Drew Holiday, newly added to Portland, drew a foul on a three, and Duop Reith's huge block fired the Blazers up even more. Portland's big man depth looks pretty solid. With the benches mixed in, Portland started completely dominating. That showed Portland isn't the weak team of the West anymore. But also that the Warriors' young core wasn't performing well. Meanwhile, Duop Reith had quietly become Portland's game changer, and Golden State's late quarter plays were honestly painful to watch, Butler giving Kuminga an earful. After getting outplayed by Portland's bench, Golden State subbed some starters back in, and finally, the home team started to look like themselves again. Horford didn't score but contributed with screens and spacing. But Portland had Deni Avdija keeping things under control, while the Warriors still looked a bit out of sync. And thanks to Avdija's all-around play, the Blazers kept their lead. Avdija's definitely looking like an early MIP favorite.
He gets into the paint here, sets up Deni. But Kev, one reason alone, Deni's going to get an and one. Count it, and a free throw.
Yes, sir.
By the middle of the second quarter, Deni Avdija was clearly running the show. But then Horford suddenly started to look every bit his age, so coach Steve Kerr decided to send all his starters back in. Golden State barely managed to keep the game within reach when Jonathan Kuminga, quiet on offense, made a monster block. At first it was called a shooting foul, but they overturned it after a coach's challenge. But the blocked player, Shaedon Sharpe, quickly answered with back-to-back threes, keeping the momentum from swinging to Kuminga's side. Even though Portland stayed up by double digits thanks to their hot shooting, Yang Hansen's presence on the floor wasn't very noticeable. He couldn't even back down smaller post defenders.
So many other things well on the basketball court. You talk about his passing, his rebounding, his charge taking.
Oh, Draymond! A little up and under.
Then Draymond Green finished a rare, smooth, fast break, followed by another beautiful transition play from Green and Curry, helping Golden State barely stay in the game. Still, Portland kept control in the shootout, and Sharpe, who was absolutely on fire, kept shocking Golden State with his scoring burst. By halftime, Portland had already made 12 threes, while Steph Curry couldn't add any more from deep. And the Blazers cruised with a comfortable lead. Just from the first half, Portland looked like a real sleeper in the West. As expected, Golden State starters sat out the second half, but surprisingly, their play actually improved. Quinten Post showed some unexpectedly solid defense, and Buddy Hield's shooting touch wasn't bad either. Meanwhile, Sharpe's shooting cooled down after his hot first half, and Portland couldn't keep up their earlier scoring pace. But aside from Hield, Golden State's shots stopped falling too, so the score difference didn't really change much. At that point, all eyes were on Yang Hansen's play.
Hansen still looking for his first points of the night, stays in the
Pass.
flow, give and go, he'll lay it up and in. Jan Hansen with his first bucket.
He finally scored his first NBA points off a pick and roll with Cameron, then added another bucket with a tip-in off an offensive rebound. At least in the second half, he started to show a bit of life. Golden State went deep into their third-string lineup, and Hansen got dunked on by Trayce Jackson-Davis. But he redeemed himself with a nice contest on the next play. He wrapped up a pretty quiet debut and checked out. It looked like Portland would coast to an easy win. But suddenly, the trailing Warriors came alive behind a dominant stretch from Quinten Post, as their bench guys played with desperate energy, turning a 20-point blowout into a close game. Even in the preseason, Portland couldn't afford to blow that big a lead, so they sent Hansen back in when his night seemed done. Portland briefly broke Golden State's zone with a three.
Salem State, that's where Devontae Cook played his ball, two different places. Quinten Post with a three. That's Spencer working with Post again, a three. He got it!
But Post immediately answered, draining back-to-back threes over Hansen. That's how this preseason turned into an unexpected thriller. Even in the preseason, the Warriors couldn't escape their clutch addiction, and Hansen committed an offensive foul under pressure. At that point, it didn't even feel like a preseason game anymore.
Putting off Quinten Post to call for that foul. That's Spencer for the lead!
As Spencer attacked Hansen and converted a tough and one, giving Golden State their first lead of the night. Unfortunately, Hansen's weaknesses kept showing at key moments. Then he got called for another offensive foul while setting a screen, which meant he fouled out of the game. And just like that, Hansen's disappointing debut was over. The Wild game kept the crowd on its feet till the end, with both teams' bench players hustling to make an impression. Golden State dominated the clutch and pulled off a huge comeback win. For the record, the Warriors dropped 51 points in the fourth quarter, which helped erase their forgettable first half. Meanwhile, the much-anticipated Yang Hansen played 21 minutes, finishing with 4 points, 4 boards, and 1 assist. He couldn't even back down Quinten Post, who isn't known for his defense, showing he still lacks direct scoring impact. His perimeter defense, especially late in the game, was a real concern, and it played a big part in Portland's blown lead. Tonight he wasn't the Chinese Jokic, just Yang Hansen having a rough night.